I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members first. Neil Harding to my left, Robert Buss to my far left. I'm Marcel Larondo. I'll be chairing today. The assessor today is Jeff Bourne, and Kim Wong will be here later. And the administrative assistant today will be Bellon Novo. We'll be hearing applications of revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit the discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to an application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave, and the process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Swear them in, please.
Please state your full name.
Jeffrey Cantor.
And you swear the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please stand. You have the option to swear it on the Bible or to affirm without it. On the Bible? Okay. Please state your full name.
Ranjit John.
And you swear the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Right.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
John.
And you swear the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Did you bring anything that you want to share with the panel? Any copies?
Yeah, you can copies and we bring the pictures to you.
Okay, how many copies do you have?
I have,
Just one copy?
yeah.
Do you want to make photocopies?
Please.
Okay. I'll-
Okay, this is what I'm gonna explain.
We'll call the meeting back to order. We're gonna start with the property at 35 Thomas Road. 37 Thomas Road? Okay, it says 34 on it. 35 here. This is the address down here. 37 Thomas Road.
The subject property at 37 St. Thomas Road is located in the St. George neighborhood. A 2 1-story, we've labeled it with a just single-family dwelling built in 2016, 1,550 square feet, full basement with basement finish, 2 full, 1/2 bath. Central air, fireplace, attached multiple garage. The lot size is 3614. It has a back lane. Actually, all comparisons also have back lanes. And the assessment of $414,000 would be $267 a square foot. It looks like a cab over, with the garage attached on the rear of the back lane, and with the master bedroom over the bedroom. But it extends over the main floor part of the dwelling, such that it's missing floor system. So it's not really a pure bi-level. I did rate it as a bi-level to see if the assessment would be different. The assessment was 410, so it's virtually the same, whether we call it a bi-level or call it a 2-story. 4 comparisons provided are 117 Blenheim, 141 Hindley, 152 Imperial, 216 Egerton, all infill houses like the subject property, ranging in age from 2011 to 2015, and size from 1252 to 1788. Of the comparisons, 117 Blenheim has a detached single garage, 141 Hindley has an attached double garage like the subject property, 152 Imperial has no garage at all, 216 Egerton has a detached double garage. Their lot sizes, 2 are smaller, 2 are larger. The range of their time adjusted sale prices are $258 to $273 a square foot. That's the evidence provided to support the April 1st, 2016 level of value of the subject property.
You're all done, Jim?
I am.
Okay. I just thought you had something when you were jotting stuff down.
No, I'm just looking at their evidence.
Okay. Do you have any questions of the assessor on his information he presented?
Yeah, but see, we pay for $110 to the square foot, we pay, but we not very
But-
high.
But do you have any questions of the assessor
No,
on
it's okay.
on it? You're good? Rob, do you have any questions?
Yes, do you know the dimensions of the lot on Hindley, the 141 Hindley?
No, but that
Is it really-
particular location most likely is a 50-foot wide lot by 158. They're very deep lots there. It could very well be 40 by 200, but they're very deep. And actually, that one probably doesn't have a back lane. It probably shares the field with Sad.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
What part of the city is the St. George neighborhood?
That extends from Fermor south to pretty much Bishop Grandin. This particular lot, 37 St. Thomas, is in the first block south of Fermor, and it actually has ditches in front of the houses. So if you can
It
remember,
has what in front of him?
ditches. If you
Okay.
can think of the 1 block stretch for St. Thomas, and there's 4 other Saint streets that run just off Fermor that all have ditches, and the comparisons don't have ditches.
That's it?
Yep.
Does it have a front drive as well then?
Back drive only.
So the garage is still attached?
Yes, facing the back lane. There's
Facing back.
virtually no yard at all.
That's-
It's effectively a condominium in that sense.
No, there's not much back here.
No, and the front yard is very tiny.
Okay. Just looking at the 15. On with your presentation.
It's,
Tell us why you feel it's too high and where you think it should be.
Same time, we have the picture in the house, what you have this here, on Santa Bata Road. Sold to 2000, built in 2015, sold in 2016. 389, the house, the front entrance garage in there. And we have the very small lot, under 30 feet wide lot. And then the picture here, we have a back entrance in the garage. If we park in the car on the driveway, the city truck can't turn even. 2-3 times they broke us on the driveway. So we have the problem here, the front we have the, and we try to build the front garage, we have the hydro there and everything. And just the very small lot, you see that this other, what's that, this and this one, the other, this 34 Santa Bata Road, this house, and nice, the same size as our house. And we pay very, normal material, like $110 feet, $110 per square feet we pay when they build us. Same company built this house.
Is this a picture of your property?
That's picture in my property. That's back garage, they have the double garage, hard to pull the second car in there because the hydro people sitting in the back on the lot. Front the fire, back in the hydro. And it's under 30 feet wide lot. 29, maybe 29. So our price should be around 3 to 350 something. But we pay less than 350 to the account the lot too.
Is that your presentation?
That's not special.
I'm gonna see if they got some questions for you. Jeff?
I'm looking at the comparisons you provided, and I calculated the average of the sale prices for them. Are you aware that the average sale price, so the evidence you provided, is $275 a square foot?
Nothing to.
Well, the evidence you provided is $275 a square foot, and the assessment's $267, so wouldn't you agree you provided sales evidence that supported the assessment? Would you agree you provided sales evidence that supports the assessment?
Sales.
Cement 414.
The properties that you gave,
Uh-huh.
if you take the square footage,
Uh-huh.
it comes out to an average of $275 a square foot.
This property here is.
The ones that you brought as comparisons.
Okay.
So they're
What mine-
falling into the same category as what the city has at they're at $267 a square foot.
Well, we didn't go for this one is the, see, there's a nice front, the driveway, white lot and everything. We doesn't have that kind of facility. This corner lot, we see the back lane is this way, back lane is this way. Always the hydro garbage truck going there, back and forth. We can't park in even our car or our drive.
Yeah, that wasn't what you asked for a question, but
I
that was a good
know what
answer.
I can.
I have no further
I'm
questions.
not
Thank you.
right now.
Robert, do you have any questions?
Yes, so you said you paid 350,000? Is
No,
that,
not less than 3, we got paid close to 275.
does that include the land? You purchased the land?
Purchased land a little bit early.
And then you hired a contractor to
Yeah, I
build
had the
the house?
contract, he charged me 110.
So it cost you said 275, you're
About
saying?
275.
So this picture here, with the hydro lines, how do you get your car into the garage?
I go just on the side, we park the one because we build that, the belt, they said we can build nice, nice, this, now, that, all kind of trouble there. They said they're gonna remove the hydro, don't want to remove that pole. Yeah.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
So what value would you suggest is the proper value for your?
Proper value, I would say, under 350 or 3 something.
Okay. Thank you.
What's this piece here on this picture that looks like a piece of steel?
So that's, they have they put the old stuff, that we can remove, but the still car can go through there.
You can move this?
Yeah, we
Is
can
it a
move
garbage
that. They
bin,
said,
or-
they said you can move that, the old something from the city sitting there. So they said I can move that, no problem with that. But we didn't move because the car won't go through there, we leave it there. But we go from the side and then to the garage. But that's no problem, that's not, it's come in the picture, it's not a big deal, so we can move that.
And you've requested for Hydro to move the line and we're willing to pay to move it, and they still,
They said no, because then,
Lots of money.
then they go to the next lot, they people don't want that, go there again.
It's a cost,
Cost lots of money.
oh yeah, it costs a lot of money to move it.
Yeah, before they said it's easy, but when we find out, it's not easy to move.
That's right.
We have a big problem to go into the garage. Always have to be careful for the hydro pole.
Who's the builder on this home?
Trademark,
Trademark?
yeah.
So nothing in the front yard, no in the back yard, and you see the front situation like a small house, they're showing in the front.
And the garage has a bedroom on top of it then? Is that, as you was explaining?
Yeah,
So it's a bi-level with a second, more like a cab over,
yeah,
in reverse.
yeah.
Because they're not wide enough.
Yeah. And your basement is fully developed, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Leave it with us, we'll have our discussion, and you'll be hearing from us within a week or two.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You have a good day.
So have a great day.
Thank you.
We always do.
Great to hear that. Thank you, sir.
The next property up will be 180 Beaverbrook, please. You'll swear him in.
Would you like to swear in or affirm? Please state your full name. And you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. I can take your copy. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. When you're ready.
The subject
Jeff?
property, 180 Beaverbrook, is located in the Sir John Franklin neighborhood, a one-story single-family dwelling originally constructed in 1928, extensively renovated, so we put an effective age on it of 1978, and what that is for is to reflect the fact that the renovations that were done, well, first to the house before it was sold, didn't make it a 2016 house, because the existing house was older, but it's not really a 1928 house anymore. So you use an effective age to come up with some sort of reflective age to deflect, to indicate the condition of the house, an age in between. 2 baths and a shower recorded, fireplace, and a detached multiple garage. 2017 sale price is $361, the 2018 assessment roll is $345. I should note that when the house was purchased for 361, it had a single detached garage in the back, and after the owner took possession, he tore that down and constructed a 528-foot double garage. The four comparisons provided are 504 Lanark, 416 Beaverbrook, 360 Lanark, 1456 Wellington Crescent South. One-story single-family dwellings all of them renovated, ranging in size from 897 to 999 square feet. All of them have detached garages like the subject property, though 416 Beaverbrook is just a single garage. And the range of the time or distance sale prices is $370 to $383 per square foot. That's the evidence provided to support the April 1st, 2016 level of value of the subject property.
Any questions of the assessor before you make your presentation?
I do actually. Could the assessor please provide the date that the comparable sales report was generated?
I don't have that information. Earlier this last week, I suspect.
The reason I ask, Chairman, is the fact that when we called the city to be provided with the comparable dwellings for our assessment, the comp 3 and comp 4 were not what was provided to us. If you look at the property tax appeal document that I provided to you, the city provided 416 Beaverbrook, 504 Lanark, 890 Beaverbrook, and 876 Centennial as the comparable dwellings. So I note that they've changed two of the comparables. We were provided this information in February in preparation for this appeal. The two comparables that they are providing are significantly larger lots. I mean, I know comparable 4 is.
You can get into that
Oh,
when you
sorry,
make your
thank you. My
presentation.
apologies. The
Right
next
now, you
question.
can ask them some questions.
Sorry, thank you. And then actually the next question I have is, noting that the two comparables have changed, can you please explain why we were provided with two different comparables as to what you're presenting as evidence today?
Well, I don't know exactly what you're provided, but for every dwelling in the city, if you look on the website with your access number, you can see the comparisons that are been chosen by the computer, and that's applicable to every property in the city. But for the purpose of the hearing, as I'm the assessor that's attending, I look for sales that are most comparable to the subject property, and that doesn't limit me to the ones that the computer selected. So these are the 4 that I've selected.
I just note that the selections that we were provided were from a city
But
assessor.
you're gonna ask them questions right now, you'll put that into your presentation.
Very good, sir, thank you. No more questions for me.
Okay, Neil?
Nothing of the assessor.
Rob?
When there's an effective age on here, were the renovations done just recently?
Yes, it
Recently,
was, the
recently.
house was purchased as an estate sale and rolled over. It was listed originally in May 24th, 2017, at $399,000, lowered it to $379,000. Current owner purchased it for $361,000, was on the market for 43 days.
Yeah, but those sales are post-reference, I believe.
The subject property is, that's correct.
But I'm asking, when the renovations, to change effective age from 1928 to 1978.
Well, we've dealt with the permits. We made the adjustments to the assessment December 15, 2017.
Oh,
And I
okay.
provided you the adjustment in my evidence that was issued on February 15, 2018.
Okay. Thank you, that's all my questions, Mr.
Is
Chairman.
that the MLS listing you were reading from?
Correct.
What was the taxation at that time on that MLS reading? What did they say,
Well, the assessment was $236 at that time.
236 at that time?
So the taxes, they reflected an assessment of $236 at that
So
time.
you hadn't caught the renovations yet at that time?
No. Unfortunately, it's a pretty common occurrence that if the builders don't take out permits, that we don't catch up to the builder before they sell the house once they've renovated it.
Okay, on with your presentation.
Thank you. Just want to start with the assessor's description is absolutely correct. Our house was extensively renovated prior to our purchase, primarily to fix structural defects in the basement. There was issues with the weaving tile. They had an engineering assessment done to shore up the foundation. So the house was extensively renovated before we purchased it. All work was permitted by the city, so they ought to have been well aware of what was completed on it if it was inspected as it should have been. So I draw back to my first argument, that the two comparables that the city provided, number 3 and number 4, don't match what were provided to us originally. I'd like to note that we did not get these off a computer system. We were provided with these when we actually called the assessor's office. So 890 Beaverbrook and 876 Centennial were provided to us verbally on the phone. When we look at the square footage comparables, the price per square foot of the cities, what was originally provided to us, the high price per square foot is $382, the average price per square foot is $341. Looking at the lot sizes of what was compared to us, 876 Centennial is a 1,000 square foot bigger lot. The home is significantly larger than what we have. Our home currently sits at 952 square feet. 876 Centennial is 1,100 square feet. 890 Beaverbrook is 1,120 square feet with a lot size of 5,300 square foot, which is comparable to what we have. 504 Lanark is 897 square foot, which is slightly smaller than ours, and 416 is 920, which is slightly smaller than ours. I note that if we take the comparables price per square foot and the average price per square foot and apply them to what our property is, the high price shows at $363, $664, the low price $324, $632. So while we certainly don't object to our assessment increase, what we do object to is the 48% increase of $109,000. Secondly, I'd like to note on the back of this is comparables, but if I could just speak to the forms that the city provided us, you'll notice that I've provided 2 forms, one dated February 7th, 2018, one dated February 15th, 2018, both notice of changes in assessment from the city. On the February 7th form, they have our previous assessed value at $238 with a revised assessment of $323 for an increase of $85,000. Yet 8 days later, they provided an additional document indicating our property was assessed at $236, which is contradictory to the original $238, and now reassessing at a $345, which is a substantial increase. So I question how the city has raised the value in 8 days that substantially. If the argument is that the February 7th document is only pertaining to December of 2017, then I would argue that the new document should reflect that the assessed value should be changed from 323 to 345, which it's not. Lastly, when we look at comparables, the actual comparables, we compared list dates listed and sold between November 2015 and April 2016, which was slightly more than what would be considered recent, so we're looking at between 150 to 180 days. We looked at bungalows, 800 to 1,100 square foot, which is pretty close to what we have. We noted that there was 3 comparables sold in our immediate neighborhood. Looking at the square footage and price per square foot, again, for all of these, they've all been updated and renovated similar to ours. We see a high price per square foot at $330 and an average price per square foot at $325. Adding that math to ours, we see that the high price per square foot should be $314, $160, with the average of $309.4. So again, we stress that we're not opposed to our assessed value increasing. We believe it should be, but we just object to a 48% increase. We've countered with our original appeal letter, which I've included, at a price of $305, which is still a 29% increase above the original assessed value. So that is the evidence that I have to present here to you folks today.
Jeff, do you have any questions?
For clarification, the one document is issued February 7, 2018. That reflects an April 1st, 2014 level of value. So the 323,000, the change from 238 to 323 reflects what the value would have changed for effective April 1st, 2014. The February 15th document, that reflects the change in value as of April 1st, 2016. So while the documents are issued 7 days apart, they actually reflect a value that are 2 years different. But otherwise, I have no questions, thank you.
Yeah, you've got a question.
Yeah, I just question where it states on the February 7th document that this is an April 2014 assessment. I don't see it, and I don't understand how we would reasonably be expected to know that.
That's the question he's asking. Where is this stated on the document?
That it's an effective date of April 1st, 2014?
Yeah,
It is not stated on that document.
it's just saying it was August 2017 to December 2017.
Right, well, I mean, it's
Was it an
not an
error?
uncommon problem to a new homeowner that's not a best. Is this your first term by any chance?
It is not.
No? So you're familiar with the 2-year reassessment cycle?
I am.
Okay, well,
which is.
It
this
occurs every
replaces-
2 years, so this one, the reassessment is 2016, 2018, 2020, et cetera, so as this is dated 2017, that would reflect the 2014 level of value. This could very well be made more clear, I would agree.
Yes, I mean, in the face of what we're looking at, I believe we have to apply the reasonable test, and a reasonable person would not be expected to understand that. I mean, it's clearly dated August 1 to 2017, whereas the secondary document specifically states the 2018 realty assessment rule, which, much to the assessor's point, we would understand was from a 2016 date, but in the face of contradictory information and the fact that the comparables are not what was originally provided to us and are by no means comparable to our property. Comparable number 4 is lot size 4,000 square feet larger. That's not even comparable, it's substantially larger.
Are you familiar with the principle of economy of scale?
I absolutely am, sir.
In this case, I withdrew the comparisons that were provided that were 1,100 square feet, as I thought they were much too large to be a good comparable sales reference for a house that was 952 square feet, so I chose two sales that were more similar in size.
Your evidence, sir, was that you weren't aware that these two 890 and 876 Beaverbrook were originally provided to us, that you generated this document sometime in the last week or two, so you would have no way of knowing that these were originally provided to us, sir. That was your own
Well,
evidence.
I'm sure these 4 sales are the ones that are from the computer, and that's what was given to you.
I can't speak to what is being shown on the computer, I can only speak to what was provided to us, which is directly contradictory to what you provided earlier, sir.
Well, the onus is on the assessment department to provide evidence to support the assessment, and I provided 4 sales to support the assessment.
I think we've got that. Rob, questions of the amount?
How, you're saying that you're unhappy with the increase, but how about the overall value? Or do you feel that the value is correct? Because that really is what we're here to kind of figure out, is the value. What the increase is not that.
I mean, I don't believe the value is there at the price. Unfortunately, sales in the Winnipeg market is not directly comparable to what home values are. As I'm sure you're aware, there's bidding wars and such. I mean, admittedly, we did not get into a bidding war in this case, but the demand drives the market, and the market is not necessarily reflective of what a home's essential value should be. So looking at a 100-year-old bungalow that's 950 square feet, we believe it should be worth approximately $305,000 to $310,000, regardless of what the market demands.
The assessment department has has an effective age on in 1978 because of some renewal. Would you agree with him that it isn't exactly a 1928 bungalow anymore?
Absolutely. Yes, I would agree with that.
And sales, you were going kind of fast there. Did you bring some sales?
Yes, I'm sorry, they printed duplex, it's on the opposite side of the sheet, my apologies.
That's this one here, right?
Correct. So there's one that's actual comparable dwellings versus city provided comparable dwellings.
What addresses?
One would be 345 Ash Street, the second
Okay.
is 373 Campbell, and the third would be 241 Beaverbrook,
Okay.
which are all comparable in size, minus the 373 Campbell, but by extending the range of what we looked at, we found one that was priced outside of, at the high end of it, and we've included that as well.
Okay, and they all sold prior to April 1st, 2016?
Correct. They would have, yes, exactly. I don't have the exact dates they were sold, unfortunately, in front of me, but they were all sold before April 2016.
Okay, well, I can take your word for that.
They would have been, just to interject, between November and April, November of 2015 and April of 2016.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
Just looking at you. You've got multiple detached garages. Do you know the nature of the garages on your comparables? Are they single or?
Those are all singles.
Okay. Do you know if any of these comparables have had extensive renovations?
They've all been renovated.
Well, have they updated with
Correct.
modern granite countertops and hardwood floors? Well, I guess they would have hardwood floors to start with.
Or some reasonable facsimile vinyl or plank,
Yeah.
whatever it's called. But yes, they've all been renovated.
Okay.
And they were specifically chosen as a result of that to reflect the condition of our home or what was on the market at the time.
And you got the information off the MLS service, did you?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Had you visited any of these properties?
I've never been inside of them. Unfortunately, we moved back to the city in July when we purchased the home. We previously lived in Calgary, so I've never been inside any of these locations.
Your home has the new kitchen in it, right? The kitchen was redone in yours?
Correct,
The
it's
bathrooms
an
were all
IKEA
redone?
kitchen. The bathrooms have not been redone, the floors, the basement bathroom has been redone because the basement had to be gutted to fix the leaking tiles.
Yeah.
So the basement is completely run out. For what it's worth, the city was aware of it, permitted it. The electrical was permitted. Unfortunately, the electrical didn't work. We had to hire a contractor to come back in and fix it. None of the plugs, none of the outlets worked, so.
And the garage, you built it when?
Would have been built in September and October
Of last year?
Correct.
And what was the cost of doing that?
24,000 and change. That included demo of the single car garage that was there, propping up the base and everything in between.
You find that that added some value to the property?
Yeah, it absolutely will add value to the property, there's no doubt about that. The only detracting would be the fact that we are on the corner of the back lane, so we run the risk of damage to our garage from large trucks, garbage trucks cutting the corner. As a matter of fact, we're in the process of installing a bollard. The previous garage had a smaller metal pole that had been hit many, many times, so there is no doubt that it has increased the value of the home, but again, we counter that it's not at the value what the city's placing on it.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
You'll be hearing from us.
Thank you very much.
22 Durham, they're going to be up next. So on 22 Durham, we're dealing with 2 different years, is that it?
Correct.
Yes.
17 and then 18?
Yes, one reflecting the April 1st, 2014 level value, and reflecting the April 1st, 2016 level value.
Would you like to swear in?
Yes.
Please state your full name.
Kenneth Lawson.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Peggy Wilson.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. I can take a copy. And do you have 2 sets?
Yes,
or-
I do.
Okay.
That's for you.
Oh, pardon me.
Would it be okay to go into the washroom first?
Sure. You can take a minute.
Okay, thanks.
You can kill it, you can kill it for a second.
pretty sobering for them to spend $450,000 in a house and see it start to crack up right away.
Okay. Real bad. Ready?
Yep.
Let's talk it out.
Heartbreaking.
When you're ready.
When I'm ready.
When
You're
you,
sworn in.
Then you gotta turn the speaker on.
I did,
Oh, you turned it on.
yeah.
We'll call the meeting back to order.
It's
Could
best to
we
have a
ask
second
that the
skill.
2018 assessment be heard before the 2017, because one is actually dependent upon the other?
But they reassessed the 2017 based on our 2018 assessment.
Doesn't really matter which one we hear
I
first.
can read all the evidence at once.
We can do all the evidence
Okay.
as one, we'll deal with them as one package,
Perfect,
and then
that's
we'll
great.
come with the, now you'll defend the position one time.
Okay, thank you.
Subject property, 22 Durham Bay, is located in the Windsor Park neighborhood, a one-story, single-family dwelling built in 1960. Again, has an effective age to reflect some modernization. 1,264 square feet, full basement, basement finish, one full, one half bath, central air, detached multiple garage. Lot size is 6915, and it's the interior corner of the bay. So if this is the bay as it goes around, it's here on the inside corner, and my first comparison, 21 Durham, actually is right across the street from it. Subject property sold for $341,000 in 2017. The MLS is actually in the appellant's evidence as well, I noticed, but the original was priced $319,900, sold for $341,000. It was on the market for 13 days. The MLS, as I said, is in the appellant's evidence, so you can read it there, but the vendor is an estate sale of Claudette Johnson, but the house was quite renovated, so it was well taken care of. The four comparisons provided are 21 Durham Bay, 352 Spears, 193 Crestwood, 10 Humber. Now, of 21 Durham Bay, you'll note the time of distance sale price is $239 a square foot. It has a double garage like the subject property, and sold with less bathrooms. And I looked at that MLS, and it was in pretty much original condition. In driving by, since it's purchased, this has a new roof, new garage door, new windows and such, but at that time, it had older aluminum frame windows, and an older style kitchen, linoleum floor. So it's been renovated since. So the difference between 21 Durham Bay and 22 Durham Bay of $11 per square foot for the 2017 level value could very well be attributed to the fact one house has been modernized, one is not. The other three comparisons are 352 Spears, 193 Crestwood, 10 Humber. One stories all, originally built between 1960 and 1965 in size, ranging from 1166 to 1215. Two baths for most, one of course for Durham. Detached double garages across the board. Lot sizes are larger for the comparison, with the exception of 193 Crestwood, though 352 Spears, having a larger lot, does have traffic influences. It's on a bus route, has a bus stop in front of it. It has school influence, has a traffic influence, and 193 Crestwood backs on to Fermor, so less desirable locations. And the range of the time of distance sale prices is $239 to $272 a square foot. That's the evidence to support the April 1st, 2014 level of value. Now, regarding the 2016 level of value, the subject property, of course, is the same, and the four comparisons provided are 43 Brebeuf, 1133 Paternay, 34 Erie, 10 Humber. Again, interestingly, 10 Humber was one of the comparisons I provided for the 2014 level of value, as it sold in June 2015. As well. There it is. Sold September 2013 for the first comparison at $298.5 natural, and then 2 years later it sold for $305 in 2015. So it actually is a very good comparison, as it sold twice. As any rate, those construction dates range from 1957 to 1965. The sizes range from 1215 to 1382. Again, double detached garages, all 1133 return. It does have an extra half bath. Lot sizes have two that are similar, two that are larger, though the one on Berternay again has a bus route with a traffic influence, and 10 Humber again has a school influence with a larger lot. The range of those time of distance sale prices is $253 to $278 per square foot, and that's the evidence provided to support the April 1st, 2016 level of value of the subject property.
Questions of the assessor?
Yes. On the 2018 assessment comparable sales report, you have shown our residents as an effective age of 1980. Can you explain to me how you reached that date?
Well, the renovations were done sometime in the 2010s, we would suspect, as it looked pretty modern. So the house isn't really a 2010 house with the modernization, it's not a 1960 house. So we came up with an effective age pretty much to try to reflect the sale price. So if the sale price had been higher, say, you know, 385,000, the effective age probably would be more like 1990.
Thank you. And you have also shown that our, on the same document, the basement finished, you have yes. Can you explain to me what that means? What percentage of the basement has to be finished in order for a yes to appear there?
Even just a 10 by 10 room would yield the yes. It's so whether it's 100 square feet or 1,000 square feet, it's recorded as yes. In your case, we have reflected a 60% basement finish, which would be approximately 650 square feet of basement finish you're assessed for.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's all I have. Oh, okay, these are reflective. The other question that I do have for you, sir, is were any of these homes actually sold in 2016 that you used as a comparable?
In the 2018s, they were not. The latest sale that I have is June 2015.
Thank you. That's all I have. Do you have anything?
Rob, do you have any questions?
By internal corner, do you mean they have like a pie-shaped lot?
No, it's on the inside. So
It's bigger, lots bigger in the front than it is in the back?
no, the garage actually. If this is the bay going around here, the odd numbers are on the outside, and they would have the big pylons. This is on the inside. So the garage actually faces north, and the house faces west. So it actually has less of a usable yard than the comparable sales.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
No questions.
Had you visited the home?
I just drove by.
Nobody's gone in it to bring it up to a 1980,
No, we used the information off the MLS.
just the MLS, no permit pulled?
No permits pulled. Drove by, has a newer roof, casement windows, plastic garage doors, upgraded soffits. So it's received its maintenance as due.
Do we do this on a regular basis, use the MLS to do an upgrade to the year?
Yes.
I thought you had to do a visit.
Well, as the legislation is recorded, we have to issue a change to the assessment. There has to be a change to circumstance, whether they built a 7-Eleven next door, tore it down, whether they built a garage, tore down a garage, or whether there's structural damage. In this case, in reviewing the MLS, ultimately the place was recorded before as having a full bath upstairs and a half bath downstairs, and we added a shower. So adjusted the basement finish, but that didn't drive value so much as of the effective age due to the modernization.
Okay, let's see what the modernization was. On with your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, I have the same package as you have. I guess, if you don't mind, I would just like to go through it with you. Attachment A is the actual document.
Are we doing the first one, the 2018 one?
The 2018, I would like to do first,
Okay,
if
we use
that's
the
okay.
2018 package first.
Okay. Attachment B is a listing of homes actually sold in Windsor Park during the period January 1st to July 1st, 2016. The document contains bungalows. What we asked for was a listing of homes between 1,150 and 1,350 square feet. We've highlighted 3 homes we believe to be very comparable to ours. These homes sold for $282, $314, and $315 consecutively. They all have double detached garages and similar upgrades as our home does. The 2018 assessments of these homes are 288, 301, and 302. Based on these three comparables, our 2018 assessment does not reflect the market value of our home in 2016. Attachment sheet C shows a comparison of the 2018 assessed value of homes on our street that are comparable to ours. And 21 Durham Bay is recorded on that listing. Attachment D is the actual real estate listing of our home at 22 Durham. Some of the remarks in the listing are not a true indication of the condition of the home. As the assessor stated, it was an estate sale. The owner had passed away before the house was listed. We actually had to wait for probate to go through before we could finish the sale of the residence. The furnace is actually 14 years old. The hot water tank is 17 years old. The cupboards were replaced approximately 2003, according to the neighbors, which is 15 years ago. And also we noticed a date stamp on the built-in microwave that would have been put in at the time of the remodel in 2003. There was a date stamp. Nothing else has been redone in the kitchen. So as far as a remodeled kitchen, I would like to suggest that simply putting in new cupboards does not constitute a remodel. The flooring is old, it needs to be replaced. Nothing else was done. There were no walls knocked down, there was no structural change. Attachment E shows our basement. You can see by the floor plan that only 48% of that basement is finished. The walls are the original paneling, and nothing has been updated for more than 20 years. You can also see that what is unfinished is totally unfinished. We have cement walls, we have a cold room with kind of a door hung there. I think that the point that I would like to make here specifically is that a home that has been kept in good shape, which it definitely was. These people really cared about this home, and it was impeccable when we went inside, does not constitute a remodel, nor does it constitute a value of a 1980 effective age. Just let me finish and then you can add, okay? Attachment F shows my current kitchen. You can see the floor is very outdated. The backsplash is very outdated, and the countertop is very outdated. The breakfast nook, which is, I guess, the eat-in kitchen, is just as it is. The window that you see at the end actually opens out into the hallway, so the light coming through is reflected from our front door. Okay? You can see that there's not a lot of room there. Her stove is right there, and underneath the cupboards on top, on the left-hand side, is the fridge. Then right in front of the fridge are the stairs going down to the basement. And the last set of pictures show you our living room, our rec room. The bathroom that's downstairs, it truly is just a half bath. It does have a shower, as you can see reflected in the mirror there, but it's a very small, confined space, definitely not remodeled. Rec room, not remodeled. That's all original. Nothing has been updated at all in the basement. There's the laundry room. To the left of that picture, you can see that the rest of the basement is totally unfinished. There's cement floor. It goes in behind the rec room, family room. There is a cold room area, but not really a proper door on that. I just think that, having said all of what I've said, if the assessor is saying the basement is 60% developed, our records indicate that it's only 48% developed. If the assessor is saying that it's a 1980 effective age for our house because of all the remodeling, I have just indicated to you that the only real remodeling done there was the kitchen cupboards. So I hardly believe that that would be effective to a 1980 effective date.
I'd like to make an additional
Yes.
comment on the C, Appendix C, which has a listing of the homes on our street that are comparable in size with the assessment value. And I haven't been in any of those homes, but visibly from the street, they've all had the same updates that we have. Newer windows, aluminum fascian soffits, newer doors, and they're all, say, in their double detached, pretty much all detached except one, a double garage. And that's all I have to comment on that.
Okay. So basically, in summary, we believe that a $50,000 increase in 1 year has not been justified by the city based on what our house would have sold for April 1st, 2016.
Questions?
Yeah, in Appendix F, the basement, so that's old style paneling, but it's been painted? Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Okay, so-
Yes.
Okay.
And it's
And you know
even
what-
in the even in the bathroom, not just wood in there as well, it's not drywall.
Of the sales you provided, of course, you spanned from January 1st to July 1st, 2016. Do you know which ones took place before April 1st?
No, we don't. When we went through our real estate agent, that was the only way she could give us that information was from January to June. And we felt it was best to have homes that actually sold during that year and that period.
It's fine, I have no further questions, thank you.
Rob?
Do they have lot sizes on the sales of these homes?
Not just square footage.
Just the square footage of the home, unfortunately. But they are all, like, these, well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, they have the dimensions, 50
Oh,
by
yes,
160,
okay.
56 by, yeah.
Ah, yes, okay.
Yeah.
50, so they're all around 50-foot lots.
Yes,
Yes, 50 by 100 is typical.
That's Old Windsor Park.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
Okay, in terms of the changes, maybe typified on the renovations or not. So your kitchen, your counter, the tops are still the original ivory?
As
Yes.
far as I know, sir,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, and the floor is the original?
Laminate
Yes.
flooring, yes. You
What
can
about-
tell, I'm sorry.
Okay, what about the rest of the houses?
The rest of the house is all open hardwoods. And just to let you know that the listing again says that it was in very good condition. We had them already done when we moved in.
Okay, so you refinished them?
Yes, we had them refinished.
Okay, but they weren't replaced or anything like that?
No,
So they
no,
were
they're
not-
all,
they were just
they're all
totally
the original
finished,
hardwood
yeah.
floors.
Just had it sanded and
That's right.
varnished? And
Yes.
Okay. And windows were replaced with modern
Yes,
vinyl?
PVC, yes. They range in a date stamp anywhere from 2001 to 2011 for the various
So they
windows around the
probably-
home.
So
They've
it's-
staged
Yes.
them over a period of
Yes.
time.
That's not unusual.
No.
No.
Okay, and just as a piece of advice, we're not allowed to consider a comparison of assessments. It's not, you can't judge much, you don't know which one is the
Yes, we
wrong
understand.
assessment.
Yes, we totally understand that. I think what we were trying to show based on that is that certainly the assessment does not reflect the 2016 market value. We totally understand that. That was just a piece of interest.
Showing in general that the assessments for Windsor Park are below what the value is, market values for the home. And we feel that we should be in line with the rest of the homes in the area, not elevated to,
And what value do you think you should have in 2018?
Okay. In
309.
2018, we feel that a fair assessment, which would be reflective of the selling price as of April 1st, 2016 would be $309,000.
Okay, thank you.
Then what did you think it should be for 2014 value?
Well, the change from, the change of the base amount from 2017 to 2018 was $10,000. So we feel for 2017, it should be roughly $10,000 or the same percentage as, so in this case, it said 317, but like the tax assessment of 2018 went from 284 to 324, which was a 14% increase. So we say the tax assessment for 2017 should be the same 14% increase. And so it was 274, it was $10,000 less. And it, so if you apply the same 14%, it would be 312. But then that's based on the
The 2018
2018,
assessment.
so we'd have to recalculate based on our estimate of what it should be of 309, and roughly drop $10,000. So that would be,
299?
yes.
And I would put it lower than any, well, I'd put it lower than a lot of these comparables.
We don't have any 2014s for houses on our street.
314, 315, 90 Duluth Bay and 80 Westmont. They sold at 314, 315. What date did you say that was?
I'm
December?
sorry?
Those were
We
all.
don't, yeah, we don't,
they
those were between January and July of 2016.
July 1st, yes.
Okay, I've got no further questions. That will conclude the minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you for
time.
your time.
Yeah, let's recess for a minute, please. Let's get Mr. Wong sworn in and call the meeting back to order.
We have to swear Mr. Newman in.
No, we don't have to swear him in, he's been sworn in permanently.
Please state your full name.
A permanent swearing in, right? What about that?
Please state your full name.
Ken Wong.
And you affirm the evidence you about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mark Newman?
And you swear the evidence you about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have evidence? Oh, no. Sorry.
Does he have evidence?
No. None. Mr. Wong, when you are ready, we will be dealing with the property on Scotia Street, right? 2701.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Can I just mention something to the board?
Sure, you can mention whatever you'd like.
We have a supplementary 17 and an 18. The issues are common. So there's an exemption issue, which I think Mr. Wong will ultimately agree the property is entitled to. There's a cap rate issue, which is common to both cycles. And there's a rental rate issue for 18 only. Otherwise, those are the only issues. There's no issue about expense ratio, there's no issue about vacancy, so it's simply cap rate both years, and it's the same cap rate, it's exactly the same argument, and the rental rate in 18.
Good.
And my thought would be, it might actually make sense to hear 18, because that'll cover the cap rate issue as well for 17, but I'm just mentioning all this to the board.
Why don't we just hear them both at the same time and get it all the questioning done, how's that? You
Sure.
good with that, Mr. Wong?
Yeah,
Then he can ask you the questions and we'll deal with them as we go along.
yeah, you can maybe just
Fire it up.
go with the 17 and then go
Yep.
straight to the 18.
please.
Yeah. Okay, the subject property is 2701 Scotia Street. The roll number is 05-009-424-615. It's a residential apartment that's 4 stories high, and it's built in 2015. It has 180 units with 92 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $877 to get a potential income of $1,894,000. We used a 25% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,420,000. We used a 45% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $780,000, kept at 5.0%. The estimated market value is $15,609,000. If you look beside the apartment income stream, there's another income stream for some excess land. It's land that's not necessary for the operation of the property, and so we've separated that.
You're on page 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you see there's two values, 15,609,000 and 636,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 15,609,000 is for the apartment, and the 636,000 is for the excess land.
Okay.
On page 4 are our rent comparables. Shows that the rents we've used are a little bit lower than what the market might garner for a typical new apartment block. On page 5 are our land comparables, showing that the rate that we've used is in line with what's on the market or supported by the market. On page 6 is information on how we derived our cap rates. Page 7 are excerpts from the Municipal Assessment Act. On page 8, there's some information on the subject property. So if you look on page 9, they do have some apartments and like apartment living for seniors, some assisted living suites, and some luxury secure living suites. Page 12 are some pictures of the subject property. Some of the, one of the suites and the, some of the common areas. On page 15, they have a large dining room. On page 16 is a commercial kitchen and refrigerator. And on page 17 are some of the amenities. A recreation room and a chapel. On page 19 are some are the rents from CMHC. For their rents for the West Kelowna area are $817 for 1 bedroom and $958 for a 2 bedroom. But those rates encompass like all properties, so it includes properties that are very new, but it also includes properties that are old. On page 20, on the bottom chart, it just shows that some of the rents might be for buildings that are of newer construction. Where the rents for a 1 bedroom are $1,069 and 2 bedrooms for $1,277. On page 21 are the permits that were taken out. Indicating that the total project value is about $22 million. When you look at the market rents that are shown, it supports the rents that we've used to estimate the value for the subject property, and the assessed value is supported by the permit value of $22 million. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value of $16,242,000.
45,000.
45,000.
Were you looking at making a recommendation on the 40S, or?
With regards to the 40S, I think it would be okay. Just it's a little bit complicated because it's not a permanent thing, so I'm not sure.
That's where the questions will come in.
Yeah. But yeah, with regard, I think other WRHA properties are 40S, so it would be.
Okay, on to the next one then.
Guess everything's pretty much the same, except the land value has gone up a little bit to $749,000, and the rental rate has gone up from $877 to $943. But once again, the market rents support the rents that we've used, or market rents that we've shown on page 4, and the CMHC rents, which we've shown on page 19 and 20. So those would be the differences, but we feel that the market does support it, and the permit value supports the assessed value, and I ask that you maintain the 2018 assessed value at $17,541,000.
Okay, Mr. Newman, questions?
Yes. Go to your 2017 brief. And beginning at page 12, you've got a variety of photos.
Yes.
Did you inspect this property, or did someone else take these photos?
My colleague did.
Do you have any idea how many of the actual living units were inspected?
The living units?
Yes, so there's 180 units. Do you have any idea how many your colleague inspected?
Probably either 1, 2, or 3. I don't. Yeah.
Are you aware that of the 180 units, 177 of them do not have a stove or a dishwasher?
I believe that to be the case.
Okay. And in fact, those 177 units, they have only what I'll call a small galley kitchen, a fridge, a small countertop, and a microwave. Is that correct?
I would be. I have no reason to disagree with that.
Okay. So, let's just talk about capitalization rate for a moment. First of all,
You're asking questions on it, right?
yes,
Okay.
50 Ridgecrest. Are you familiar with 50 Ridgecrest?
I believe it's the property next door.
That's correct. It's the property next door, operated by the same operator, used for the same purposes. And indeed, let's back up a step. This is what is sometimes called an independent living facility, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this one, however, has a variety of different aspects to it, in the sense that it's got a higher level of care for those who have a propensity to wander. And so the area where they reside, the boulevard, is actually a secured area. It's locked. Are you aware of that?
Apparently there are 12 secure units.
Right, okay. So this is an independent living facility, and it's a facility, as you've indicated, where 177 of the units do not have a traditional full kitchen, correct?
I think a lot of them do not, but yes.
Okay. And 50 Ridgecrest is an equivalent facility right next door, correct?
I'm not totally sure, but I would assume that, seeing as this is phase 2, that it would be similar.
Okay. So the valuation that appears on page 3 of your 2017 brief, is it model-driven?
Yes, it is.
Is it completely model-driven, including the vacancy? Or was the vacancy overridden?
No, the vacancy is an override.
Right. But the rest of it, in terms of the gross potential rent and the expense ratio and the capitalization rate, that is all model, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then at page 6 of your 2017 brief, you've got capitalization rate information. And in the multifamily section of that document, it talks about high-rise and low-rise, and then low-rise A and low-rise B. First of all, do we agree that this building is 4 stories?
Yes.
and therefore it would fall within low-rise and not high-rise?
If you were distinguishing, it would probably fall in the low-rise category.
Okay. And can you tell me what the difference is between the top two rows in that section, high-rise, low-rise, and the bottom two, low-rise A, low-rise B? Do you know what the difference is in those categories?
We don't distinguish, the rates are the same.
So are those references put there because some of the other reporting Colliers or CBRE, they use them and that's why they've been repeated?
Correct.
Okay. And so with the low-rise buildings, you're indicating, the city's indicating a range, the 20th percentile of 5% and at the 80th percentile of 5.5%, correct?
Yes.
And that is driven by sales of apartment buildings in the city to which model rents are applied, model vacancy, model expense ratio to arrive at a net operating income.
Yes. Great.
How many of those buildings that have sold in the city do not have kitchens?
I'm not sure.
Would you agree with me, with my suggestion that typically apartment buildings do have what I'll call a traditional kitchen in the sense that they have the full spectrum of appliances?
Typically, yes.
Okay. And so a building that does not have that would not be typical of what the model is reflecting. Agreed?
No, but that's what we are trying to do. It's like we're trying to apply what a typical apartment might rent for, and trying to establish a value that way.
Right. But agree with me, if you would, that the model that the city builds is derived from buildings that do have traditional kitchens, correct?
I would say so.
And therefore, when we now try and put this building, which does not have a traditional kitchen, into the model, it's not of the same type of property as the rest of the properties in the model, correct?
That's I would say it's difficult to say.
Okay. If you were an investor looking to buy an apartment building, would you think an apartment building which did not have a traditional kitchen would be more difficult to rent than one that did?
It probably wouldn't happen. It probably wouldn't. There probably wouldn't be too many of those.
Right. And therefore, from an investor's perspective, would you agree with me that the investor would see it as being riskier, a riskier investment?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the units, the small units are because of the business that it's being used for. And if you're going to sort of like the small units, they can be looked at as a negative, but they're small because of the business. And if you're going to look at the negative aspects of the small units, you have to look at the positive aspects of the business. And if you do look at the positive aspects of the business, I do think they kind of balance each other out.
Except, there's one little issue with what you just said, and that is the city is not in a position to value the business side of things, are they?
But we are in a position to try to value it as closely to an apartment block as we can.
As closely as you can, all right. Recognizing that it's not the same as a typical apartment building, agreed?
Yes.
Okay. I think those are my questions.
Robert?
The comps, comparables that you have on page 4, are they similar to the subject property?
I believe that they are. I believe they are similar in terms of the way that the units are finished, but maybe slightly different in construction in that the subject is masonry and these comparables are wood. Like a lot of the wood construction. A lot of the low-rise 4-story buildings are wood nowadays. But I guess this is a higher quality. The subject is a higher quality, it being a masonry construction.
So would they be smaller suites with less than full kitchens, do you think?
No, they would,
Be regular
they
apartments?
would be regular apartments and, say, regular sized apartments. And I think that's what we're trying to establish, is what regular sized apartments rent for.
Okay, and did I hear you mention the WRHA?
Yeah.
How are they involved in this building?
They have I think they have a 2-year lease agreement with the owners of the subject property for some transitional care beds, and that would be in the neighborhood, I think 65 beds. But I think Mr. Newman will get a little bit more into that.
Okay. And the 25% vacancy that you've used, where does that come from?
It's to, I guess it's the assessor that put it on determined that was, I guess, necessary to reflect the lease-up time that it's taken to reflect the vacancy that is existing in the property right now. And so that's why it's there.
Okay.
So if it wasn't for the vacancy, the value would be, I guess, higher than it is, and it would probably come in at the 20 million, or a little bit above the $20 million mark.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Neil?
Okay, so this is one of those seniors places where the amount they pay per month also reflects the fact that they get meals provided and access to common areas and that. So the business is providing seniors with a place to live and meals and.
Yeah. I mean, I think their rents, they can be like in the $3,000 to $4,000 range.
Yeah.
So those would include, I guess, their meals, but also other services as well, maybe nurses and.
So you're trying to value them as an apartment, trying to remove that business value out of the equation.
Yes, and so we're trying to establish what a typical newer apartment might be, and we're trying to estimate the value in that way, because I guess it's the approach that the department has deemed the most appropriate for these.
Well, it is difficult.
Yeah, for these maybe difficult properties to
Yeah.
value, and it seems reasonable that it seems like a reasonable approach.
But it's a bit of a let's pretend sort of approach to determining what it is.
It is, but it's probably I believe it's the fairest approach, seeing as it's the approach that we take with many other commercial properties.
Yeah.
So,
And they have large common areas that.
yeah, as you can see in
Basically a
the
restaurant.
pictures I provided, they do have large common areas and commercial kitchens and recreational areas, and that's typical of this type of facility.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
When was the lease signed with WRHA?
It looked like it was, according to the press article, it may have been in September 2017.
So that's changed the vacancy rate now, I guess.
That has brought the occupancy levels up to, I think at the time it was about 64%.
It was 64 before they,
No, after.
after.
Yeah. In last year.
Was it not, in 2014, when it was being built, constructed, was it not being done for the, well, they already had in talks with WRHA, that's one of the reasons those 12 units were put in?
I'm not sure. All I know is that it was originally like 12 secure units, and now it looks like it might be, I guess, maybe not secure, but more 65 beds that are similar. Yeah.
For a special purpose?
Yeah, it's possible. I can't, I would only be speculating in the sense that because maybe, we applied the vacancy because lease-up appeared to be slower than they had anticipated, and it's possible that because lease-up was slow, that they opened up to the idea of, the WRHA, and but that's just.
These types of buildings, facilities, let's call them facilities, they started constructing them in the 1990s. Why is it we're now in 2018 and we still don't have a mechanism that properly evaluates it?
Once again, it would be speculating, but if you want me to kind of speculate, maybe my thoughts on it, it would just be like we don't have very many sales to try to establish a value for them, because usually if they do transact, we might not be privileged to the transaction details, and
you're more likely selling the business rather than the building.
well, they're selling everything.
Yeah.
They're not selling the.
It's like a hotel,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
But the hotels now you've got a system that works, right?
Yeah.
Or-
But I'm just saying, like, if you were to try to sell this property as like, a business and all, my guess is that it would probably sell for more than the assessed value.
Mhm. But that's not what we're after.
That's, I mean,
We're not chasing the business price, we're chasing the value of what we think the property is worth.
yeah, it's a
Catch
difficult,
22.
it's a
But
difficult
we're gonna
one.
see how Mr. Newman dances on this one. Mr. Newman, it's your turn to dance.
So let me try and address the questions that the panel was asking towards the end of the questions of the assessor. And in my materials, I've actually got a fair bit of history for you, and I'm not going to require you to look at it, I'm just going to tell you about it. But tabs 4, 5, 6, and 7,
That's on the 17,
yeah, it's actually common to both of them.
4, 5, 6, and 7.
These are municipal board decisions, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 is an article. But exactly the problem, Mr. Harden, you asked, aren't these facilities where people can pay between $3,000 and $4,000 a month because in addition to the unit they occupy, they get meals, they get activities, they get other things? And the answer is yes. And the people who operate this facility are an outfit called All Seniors. And All Seniors operate 6 of these other facilities in Winnipeg, including 50 Ridgecrest, which is immediately adjacent to. And this property is on North Main, just to the north of the Chief Peguis Trail as it hits Main Street. That's where it is. But they've got 2 opposite the Grace Hospital on Setter and Hallenquist. They've got one on Shaftesbury, they've got one on St. Anne's Road, they've got one in Brandon. They have a business model that they operate to. And their business model sees them not put in full kitchens. They're not wired for them, they're not set up for them, because that's the model they want. There are other operators in town whose business model does have the units having a full kitchen and having a washer and dryer. And what that creates for them is a flexibility that if they believe this market was saturated, and this market is becoming saturated, the vacancy rates have come up, then they've got the ability to treat them as traditional apartments, they would have the ability to treat them as condos. This operator cannot do that because the units are not built for that. They do not have the full kitchen. The other buildings in town have no full kitchens at all. In this one, in 3 units, they put in the full kitchen that you saw in the photo as an experiment, to see that if there would be a demand for people living in this facility who would still want to have their meals and do their cooking in their units. They tell me, and I spent time with the executive director 3 weeks ago, they tell me that the experiment is not working. People still prefer to take their meals in the common dining rooms. So, what's the history of these things? And I'll be brief on this. When these first came out, and these really got going in the late 90s and early 2000s, there had been no new apartment construction in Winnipeg for a long time. Therefore, there were not comparable rents for new builds. That has changed over the years, of course, and we've had lots of newly built apartment buildings in the city over the last 10 years. Therefore, when the city first did this, their approach was to take the actual rent being paid, and let's say 10 years ago it was $2,500 a unit, and they would subtract the meal cost. If you have a second person residing in the unit, then you pay an additional meal cost, which back then was about $400 a month. So they would take that $2,500, subtract the $400, the second person meal cost, use $2,100 as the rent, and then the values were driven by that $2,100. That didn't work very well, because that was not reflective of what apartments would rent for. And at the end of the day, the issue here was, like it is in hotels sometimes, how do you separate the business value from the realty value? So these three municipal board decisions that are here are examples of what I'll call the old system, which was difficult because there were not good comparables. With the passage of time, what it has evolved to is what you see here today. The department does not use the actual rents that are being paid, because it recognizes that those are for a package of services that are not accessible. The department uses other apartment buildings as the proxy rents, and I don't quarrel with that concept. What I do quarrel with a little bit is you need to be careful that you're comparing apples and apples, because this building is not the same type of building in the sense that it does not have the traditional kitchens, there's no washer and dryer in the unit, there's no dishwasher, and there's no stove. But these apartment buildings, these newly built ones, these higher end ones, and I have some rebuttal to hand out, which is just the comparables, it's the detail sheets showing you that these other units all have, here's 5 for you. They all have the full spectrum of appliances and washer and dryer. So I don't quarrel with the methodology, and at the end of the day, as I told you at the outset, there are 3 issues that you have before you this morning. One is the exemption that the assessor agrees should be granted. The other is the rental rate for 2018. I do not quarrel with the rental rate for 2017, which is set at $877, I believe. So it's cap rate, the exemption that the assessor agrees upon, but I'll explain that more in a minute. Yes, 2017 is $877, but I do quarrel with the 2018 rent, which is $943. So what I have given you in the package is I've given you the assessor's, 2018 is the first page. It's the assessor's comparables, showing $943 is the rent for the subject, and the comparables, and then the next page is the 2017 comparable page, showing the $877.02 per unit. And then I've got some photos of the comparables and some detailed information. So 1175 Leela, at Bellagio Apartments, you can see the kitchen there. You can see, if you go to the next page, that the amenities include a dishwasher, parking, fridge, stove, oven, washer, dryer within the unit. Then you go to 1153 St. Anne's, 4-story building as well. And if you turn 3 pages into that, 4 pages into that, and I'm sorry, I realize I didn't number these, and I very much apologize. So it's the page that has, at the bottom, magazine. And if you look at the top of that page, you can see air conditioning, dishwasher, refrigerator, stove, washer, dryer.
Okay, am I on the wrong page here?
Magazine at the bottom.
Okay, that's all the way to the back. Okay.
And so you can see again what the amenities are, just to distinguish it from the subject. If you go to the next page, you get 1205 Leela. 1205 Leela and 1175 Leela are actually part of the same complex called Bellagio Apartments. So everything I said on the prior Bellagio information is the same. And then the last one is Kildonan Green, 45 Kildonan Green. And you can see there, the rent includes all utilities, and in-suite laundry and a dishwasher. And again, I just wanted you to see this to understand the difference in the amenities that are in the units. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I did not cross-examine the assessor on this, but if you look at the very first page of this rebuttal evidence, you can see that the subject property at 171 one-bedroom units, 95% of the units are one bedrooms. If you look at the comparable properties, they all have a much higher ratio of two-bedroom units. The effect of that is, and I know this from prior examinations of other assessors on these same issues, that average rent per month is simply a function of the total rent, both one and two bedrooms, divided by 12, divided by the number of units. The effect of that is when you have a much higher percentage of two-bedroom units with higher rents, the rents are skewed to a higher number because of the presence of higher renting two-bedroom units. So I just say to you, you need to be careful with the comparability for two reasons of the assessor's rental numbers. Firstly, you don't have the full spectrum of appliances, and secondly, these other comparables are skewed to a much higher ratio of two-bedroom units. And I did the same thing on the 2017. Again, you can see 95% for the subject, but 12% for 12%, 25%, 14%, 24%. So again, between 75 and 85% of the units in the comparables are two-bedroom units. And that's really all I want to say about that. So what I want to now turn to is, as I said to you, I'm accepting the rent for 2017 at $877. Now what I want to talk about is the 2018 rent of $943. So that's an increase of $66.50 over the 2016 rent, 7.58%. I don't think that rent is appropriate for a number of reasons. And so let me address that. If you now go to tab 8 of my brief, my 2018 brief. So tab 8 is the CMHC information indicating that October of 2015, one-bedroom rents are $884 in West Kildonan, and two-bedroom rents are $1,025 in West Kildonan. Of course, these are for buildings with full traditional kitchens, which the subject does not have. So that's one thing I want to point out. Then if we go to tab 8A, 8A is a survey that I did of newly built apartment buildings. And what I was doing through this process is I was calculating a rent on a per square foot basis, because the best way to compare apartment rents is to convert them to a unit value on a per square foot basis. And by doing this, and these were all newly built buildings, because the intent was to arrive at a set of comparables to extract rental rates for properties like the subject. And that allowed me to determine at the end of the day that the range of rents, and I'm going to take it back into the text of my brief in a minute where you'll see this laid out, but it allowed me to determine that the range of rents per square foot was $1.31 or $1.36, depending on whether it was a one or a two-bedroom unit. And then finally, tab 8B, that is the brief for 2018 assessment for 50 Ridgecrest. The immediately adjacent facility, I have inspected both of them. They are essentially the same facility. 50 Ridgecrest is 173 units. You can see that on page 3 of the brief. 15 of which are two-bedroom, 158 are one-bedrooms. And the assessor there used an $891 rent as opposed to the $943 that's being used here. And then finally, you see on page 4 of the assessor's brief, the comparables, two of the comparables, 1205 Leela and 1175 Leela, comparables 1 and 2 are the same, and that resulted in a rent of $891 compared to the rent of $943, which is being used here. which I consider to be excessive. So if we now go to the text of my brief, the 2018 brief, at page 5, there is the section of that brief that deals with rents.
Okay, 1 second, please.
Page 5 of the text, not tab 5, page 5 of the text, front of the brief.
Page 5, okay. Ready to start.
I have to find a better way to do this.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you see there, that's the section where I deal with rents. And what it does is it puts into text what I just showed you in the exhibits. So I say I adopt a multi-pronged approach to addressing the rents. The first tab talks about CMHC rents of $884 and $1,025, but I take off 10% from that to account for the fact that the units do not have traditional kitchens. And I say to you, if you're coming to rent an apartment, if you're not getting a stove, and if you're in a higher end apartment and expecting a dishwasher and you're not getting one, you're not gonna pay the same rent for an apartment that doesn't have a full kitchen. So that's why I've made a reduction of 10%. The other thing I did, and this is right at the bottom of the page, as I told you, I surveyed the market. I extracted rates for 1-bedroom units of $1.36 a square foot and $1.31 a square foot on the 2-bedroom units. And then I applied these to 620 square feet for the 1-bedroom units and 980 square feet for the 2-bedroom units. And that got me rents of $843 on the ones and $1,283 on the twos. But we don't have full appliances again. And so I took off the 10%, which got me to $758 for the ones and $1154 for the twos. And then finally, I point out that 50 Ridgecrest adjacent, the assessor used $891.57, and I ultimately am selecting $891.57 as the rent to be used. And I'll show you that calculation at the end. Then I want to talk about cap rate, and everything I'm going to say about cap rate applies equally to 2017 and 2018. The assessor has used the same 5% cap rate, model driven, for 2018. Let me say at the outset that this issue of cap rate has been consistently raised in relation to these properties, and both on the 2016 cycle and on the 2018 cycle, many different panels of this board have accepted the argument that the cap rate should be 5.5%. And I'm going to show you those decisions in a minute, but they are found in the tabs in each of the different briefs. But, you know, for example, each of you gentlemen sitting here have sat on hearings where essentially the same arguments have been made and the capitalization rates of 5.5% have been accepted. But in addition to the three of you, Messrs. Reese, Mitchell, Merritt, Cowelson, Stenning, Boreski, Mitchelson, Massacott, and Upton have also agreed with the 5.5%, as have Ms. Garrity and Ms. Stevens. And it's the same arguments that are being raised, which is that it's all well and good to go to the market and get apartment cap rates from the market, but we have to remember a couple of things. If you're an investor and faced with the opportunity to buy what I'll call a traditional apartment, full kitchen, the ability to rent it in a normal, typical fashion, or you have the opportunity to buy something like this, which does not have a traditional kitchen, which are you going to buy? And if you're going to buy both, what level of risk are you going to assign to the one without the full kitchen? Because it's going to be harder to lease. Now, as somebody said, this is pretend or make-believe, because it is. Because the reality is, thus far, these types of properties have not sold except in the context of a sale of the business as a going concern. And that's how they're going to sell. For my client, because of their business model where they don't put a full kitchen in, they do not even have the flexibility to change it to a different use, a more traditional apartment building or a condo, as some of the others do. I know Mr. Story has come here with his people on Sterling Lion Parkway and those facilities, they've got that flexibility. These ones don't. So as an investor, when you have to look at the risk that you face, I say to you that the risk that you face on a business like this, a property like this rather, is different. It also has large common areas, but those common areas only have value in the context of the business. The common areas are actually an encumbrance from a real estate perspective because it costs money to heat them and maintain them and look after them and insure them and all the rest of it, which is great in the context of a business operation, but not great in the context of a pure real estate value. And so what I have put into my brief, and we can look at the 2018 brief first. If you go to tab 9, so tab 9 is the 2013, quarter 4, 2013, which would be applicable to 2017, but you can see in Winnipeg, this is Collier's reporting, 5% on, or 5.25% rather, on low-rise buildings at the low end of the range and 6% at the high end of the range for low-rise buildings. As all of you will have heard before, Collier's has a very peculiar way of reporting their capitalization rates. They include their closing costs, the effect of which is to result in a higher sale price. And when you've got the same NOI, the effect of that is that the cap rate comes down, and so it makes the building, from an investor's perspective, look more valuable. The reality is that the cap rate should be increased by 25 basis points, and so the low end of the cap rate is 5.5, the high end is 6.25 for traditional apartment buildings. This is not, and so it should attract a higher cap rate. Tab 10 is the department's handout that they were using for 2018. And again, in the multifamily area, you can see that the city of Winnipeg reports for low-rise buildings at the 20th percentile, 5.25, and at the 80th percentile, 5.5. Collier's is reporting 5 to 5.75. Again, have in mind the adjustment I described earlier because of how they report and include the closing costs. But again, more importantly, these are not for comparable properties. These are traditional apartments, which the subject is not. My tab 11, and this applies in the context of 2018, a property you heard much about was the sale of 333 Ward, a relatively newly built, well-built building that was bought by Artis. And Mr. Story brought forth reporting on that, indicating that the capitalization rate would be 5.44%, and this is his package of reporting in relation to that property. And I say to you in relation to that simply that at the end of the day, what we have is a situation where if that's the cap rate for a building of that type, in the good condition that it is, again, the subject property without the full spectrum of, and forgive me, I'm extending my parking. So if we have a cap rate of 5.44 for a traditional, well-built, newly built building in the south end of the city, I'll mention, and I hate to mention the north end discount concept, but I've actually had to explain to my clients the concept of the north end, because they have, and you know, developers are eternal optimists, of course. They had slow lease up on 50 Ridgecrest, and they're experiencing slow lease up again here, and I've tried to explain to them the concept of the north end. Tab 12 is the Altus 2018 cap rate study. It really repeats much of what I've said to you, but it also includes evidence at the municipal board given by Don White. And Don White was the Collier's person who wrote the Collier's investment reports in the cap rate section. And this is him explaining the concept of including the closing costs and the land transfer tax and all of those things as part of their sale price for calculating cap rates. Finally, at tab 13, you've got a selection of decisions involving panels of this board. Shaftesbury at the bottom, page 1, 5.5% cap rate. 50 Ridgecrest, page 3, 5.5% cap rate. 10 Hallenquist, 5.5% cap rate. 707 Center, 5.5% cap rate. 1015 St. Anne's, based on applicant's evidence, and that was a 5.5% cap rate as well. So there's a whole series of decisions, and these are all exactly the same properties. They're all by the same operator, so it's all without the traditional kitchen. And then finally, the very last page, tab 14, is the calculation of value. And what I have done here is, as I've said, the assessor has used $943 as the average rent. I've used $891 for the reasons I've articulated. Same vacancy of 25%, expense ratio of 45%, 794,388 of NOI. I'm capping it at 5.5, and that results in value of $14,443,000. If just for a moment you would turn to tab 11 of the 2017 brief. And in tab 11 of the 2017 brief, that is the calculation of value. I have used the assessor's $877 a unit. 25% vacancy is the same. Expense ratio, I've used 45%. On both of them, the assessor's at 45.07. NOI of 781, resulting in value of $14,207,000. Two things I want to address still. There's an additional excess land value. I'm not contesting it, so I accept the land value as the assessor has set it forth. And so the land value needs to be added to my income value in each of the properties. And then lastly, I want to deal with the exemption. And if we go to tab 2 of the 2018 brief, here is the announcement by WRHA.
Tab 2 of,
The 2018 brief, it's the same in both of them, actually. So as the assessor has noted, the assessor is not contesting the applicability of the exemption, but I just want to explain a little bit more for the board. So WRHA has taken over 65 living units. Let's be crystal clear, they've taken 65 of the units in this building. In these units are now hospital beds, because these are patients who are coming from the hospitals. They're well enough to come out of the hospital, but they're not well enough to either go home or go to a more permanent facility where they may reside. So they need transition, they still need some care. There's nursing support, there's physician support in these facilities, and that's what this is. What I have done for purposes of calculating the exemption is I have taken 65 units, which is what WRHA has taken, and I've divided that by the 180 units in the complex, and that turns into a percentage of 36.11%. And so what I am saying to you ultimately is that 36.11% of the income value for the building, not the land, because the land's not eligible for the exemption, so not 36% of the excess land value, but 36% of the building value only should be classified as 40S, and that's how it should be done. So, and just to help you, so for 2018, 14,443,434 times 36.11% would suggest that 5,215,524 should be 40S.
Repeat that number again? You did it, didn't you?
I did, because I was gonna give you the other number now. So let me give you the other one, because I've got it on my calculator. 9,227,910
9,227,910.
is the fully taxable.
9 million,
227,910,
so 228.
yes, okay, is the fully taxable. And 5,215,524 is the 40S. And then fully taxable, you have to add the,
It would be the same on both. The 5,215,000 would be the same for both.
well, the values are different.
Each one is done
Nope.
separately.
With
Yeah.
the nickels and dimes.
But it's a small difference, and the land value is different as well in the 2 years. So there's a small difference. But that's what should be done here in my submission. So I've been long-winded, I apologize. And subject to questions, those are my submissions.
There we go. Ken, any questions?
I guess just with regards to the rent that you are, I guess, using for 2018.
Yes.
So what exactly are you basing that, I guess?
So I'm basing it on 3 things.
Yeah.
Page 5 of the text of my brief. I'm basing it on CMHC rents reported in West Kildonan of $884 for ones and 1,025 for twos, but again, those are traditional full kitchen units. Deducting 10% would bring us down to 800 for the ones and 923 for the twos. That's one measuring stick. A second measuring stick is my search of the marketplace for newer built buildings, which results in a value of $1.31 a square foot for the 2 bedrooms, $1.36 for the 1 bedrooms, and applying that to 620 square feet for the ones and 980 square feet for the twos. And what I told you on the first page of my brief is that 75 of the units are 612 square feet, and 84 of the units are at 615 square feet. So, there's a total of 159 units that are less than 620 square feet, and that's why I've used 620 square feet. There are a few that are a bit bigger, but that's why I've used it. The 2 bedrooms are either 985 or 975. I've used 980, and that results in rents of $843 for the ones and $1,283 for the twos. But again, for traditional full kitchen appliance units, if I took off 10%, I get $758 for the ones and $1154 for the twos. My third measuring point was 50 Ridgecrest next door, where I put the brief in, where the assessor used $891. My $891 average is actually higher than my other 2 measuring sticks, and that's why I'm using $891 in the end.
Okay, so you, initially, one of them is like you use CMHC rates.
That was a starting point, yes.
Okay. And the rates that you used from CMHC, do they include apartments that are much older as well as much newer?
They will include the full spectrum.
Okay, so do you think it's, I guess, a fair comparable?
Well, so even if we go to the,
Well, no, I mean, do you think it's fair to use those rates as, for a new build such as the subject property?
well, I used it as a starting point, and as I
Okay.
said, the rates derived by taking off 10% are actually much lower than the $891 I'm using. So at the end of the day, my $891 is driven by 50 Ridgecrest next door, which was the assessor's selection of rent, but also it is higher than my other two methodologies, which would take into account your concern about the comparability of the full spectrum as opposed to the newly built.
Are you aware that CMHC provides, I guess, estimates for new builds as well at over $1,100 for one bedrooms?
Yes,
Okay,
with kitchens
yeah, okay.
and
So-
washer and dryer.
Okay. And also, I guess with regard to your, I'm not sure about the, I guess, the per square foot, I didn't really look into that part of it, but with regards to the $891 that for your third point,
Yeah.
so you're saying that going from 877 to from 2017 to 943 is a little bit excessive, or why is the why did for 50 Ridgecrest, why was it 891? Was it? Sorry.
891, yes.
Yeah. Why was it 891 as compared to the subject properties 943?
Are you asking me that question?
Were you wondering that?
No, I wasn't wondering it.
Okay. But was it you felt it was unfair because it is essentially the same property?
It's exactly the same,
Yeah.
in exactly the same location.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, point out that do you think it could be due to the fact that the gross floor area per unit is larger in the subject property
The
than?
gross floor areas are deceiving. The
Yeah.
reason they're deceiving is because they include the common areas and they include the hallways, which are extra wide in these places to accommodate people with mobility issues. But having said that, because of my other methodologies of arriving at the rent, CMHC sourced, and as well broader
Oh,
market
no,
sourced.
CMHC is saying like 1,100 for like a one.
What I'm saying,
Yeah.
yeah, again, but full kitchens.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the adjustment for that? Plus my survey of the marketplace to arrive at rents on a per square foot basis. And again, for full traditional appliance packages.
So why do these units not have kitchens?
Because, two reasons. They're concerned from a safety perspective. The average age of a resident of these facilities is close to 80.
Oh, sorry, I guess, sorry, I guess just to be a little bit more clear, did the units not have kitchens because of the business model?
Yes,
Okay, so you're, in essence, so the units don't have kitchens and are small because of the business model?
yes.
Yeah, and so you're taking the negative aspect of the smaller units and the no kitchens, so you're looking at it more from, you're looking at it more from, I guess, a business perspective, and I'm sorry.
I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it from a real estate perspective. If I'm a real estate investor, I gotta buy what's physically there. Okay, I can't pretend it's got a full kitchen. I can't pretend it's got wiring for a stove. I gotta buy what's physically there, and that's what the city has to value. So what I'm buying are units without a full kitchen and without washer dryer. Whereas the rest of the marketplace has those amenities. So how am I gonna be able to lease up? What's my investment risk as an investor? That's why I think these properties are different and need to be treated differently.
Okay. So are you, in your valuation approach, are you trying to value it as an apartment, or are you trying to value it as a assisted living facility?
I'm valuing it as what it is, an independent living facility, using as a proxy for the rents from apartment buildings more newly built in the marketplace. If I was valuing it as an independent, from a business perspective, the cap rate would be much higher than 5.5%.
But business considerations are, you're taking the business consideration into, when you're calculating your rents.
No, I'm taking into account what's physically there.
And it's physically there because of the business decision, right?
That's true, but I don't think it matters why it's physically there. You can only value what's physically there.
Okay, that would be all my questions.
Bob?
The property at 50 Ridgewood, you have the decision in here saying they used $8.91 a square foot. Is that, whereabouts is that?
It wasn't the decision, it was the presentation by the assessor.
No, it's tab 13.
Okay. Does it have the assessor's brief in that shows the
No,
scope?
yes, it does. So, but let me just take you to tab 13, page 3, the decision,
Okay.
which says at the bottom, assessor's net operating income and a 5.5 cap rate. Okay? Now let me take you to tab 8B, page 3.
8B. I guess I could.
Tab 3B?
2018 brief, tab 8B.
Okay.
And you can see that the assessor's rent is $891.57. So that drove the net operating income. And the board's decision was assessor's net operating income, 5.5 cap.
Okay. So my question is, are the suites the same size in 50 Ridgewood as they are? The 891, is that based on a suite that is the same square footage as the ones in the subject property?
The answer in a general sense is yes. And I say it that way because I want to be upfront and honest with you, Mr. Buss.
Good.
All of their units are built throughout the city, are built more or less to the same model. There are variances, without question, but these are not in relative terms as large as typical apartment units. They are smaller, with a preponderance of the space actually in the bathrooms of all places. Again, mobility issues, access issues, but the answer is yes, the units are quite similar in size. I'm not telling you every single unit is exactly the same, but what I am telling you is that the units are quite similar in size.
Okay. Has WHR made any physical changes to these rooms that they're
No.
using?
No, they're exactly the same.
They just put the patient in and,
And they bring in a hospital bed, and they bring, if they need a lift, for example, I've got pictures on my phone, they've got lifts, they've got oxygen tanks. It's not a full-scale hospital, obviously, but it's people who are well enough to come out of the hospital, but they are equipped with hospital beds.
that's all my questions. Thanks.
Neil?
Okay, on these beds then, so the patients, or whatever you want to call them, would get meals delivered from the kitchen and
Yes.
not go down to the...
Well, they won't go down to what I'll call the main dining room that you saw in the photos. They will have two options. They can either eat in their rooms, or within these areas, they have what are called pods or lounges. So there is an eating area and a lounge attached to each of these areas of units, and they can go into that area to eat if they wish, but the food is brought from the kitchen to them.
Okay, all right. I have surprisingly no other questions.
Transitional care, I guess that's where I've got my questions.
Yeah.
This is something new the government's come up with, correct?
Yeah.
So until such time as the hospitals get realigned so that they have the transitional beds there.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
It's the new theory of how to control costs.
If these were seniors' beds out of the WRHA, would they be exempt on the 40S?
When you say seniors, what do you mean by that?
If these were, okay, let's not call them seniors, the people that are not ready to be living independently yet, that are living in homes, are those homes, those privately run homes, are they 40S?
Some of them are, and I think it depends on the level of care that's associated with them. You know, generally speaking, my client's operation is to treat them as independent living. But you've got, you've got some convalescent homes, for example. You've got some what I'll call nonprofit sponsored facilities, which I think are providing a higher level of care than you would typically find in one of these all seniors facilities. Although again, you know, because everybody's fighting for market share, you can see that what they've done is they've created this secure area for those with dementia or Alzheimer's who have a propensity to wander. But I would say to you that certainly some of the convalescent type facilities, the higher level facilities, will get the 40S treatment.
So when they drew up this contract, they weren't aware of a 40S on property, correct? When they accepted the 4.6 million per year.
I don't know what they were thinking. I know that WRHA, we all know that WRHA has become very sensitive to their property tax status, and we've seen them moving aggressively on the exemption front because of that.
But your appellant, who bid to get this service, would have not used that deduction, would he? He would have calculated it in his business model to work before setting it up to rent it out to the WRHA.
I don't know the answer to that.
See, you know my position. I don't hand out 40Ss just for the sake of handing them out. And if I was a business person, I would want to know what I was offering somebody and what my return was going to be. Now all of a sudden we're going to kick his return up by 36%.
Well, I don't know that that's the case. You're speculating that that's the case.
I'm asking you the question.
But I don't know is the answer I'm giving you, because I don't know how they put their bid together for this project.
But they knew what their costs were.
Well, we'd like to think they did.
They knew what their tax bill was.
We'd like to think they would have modeled that in some way.
They're a pretty smart business. They got quite a few of them.
We'd like to think. And Mr. Lorendo, I appreciate your questions and your inquiring mind, and I say that respectfully and with a smile, and I mean it sincerely. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the assessor's not contesting the entitlement to the exemption.
Doesn't mean I have to agree with them.
I understand that.
I am an independent member, right?
Absolutely, you are.
Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't.
I know that
Sometimes I
too.
agree with you, sometimes I don't.
I know that too.
And I've got a challenge. This one sort of challenges me, I've got to be honest. It's because of that reason that the contract was already done at the old rates. Why are we coming after the fact and applying for aid?
But you're making a presumption with respect.
How am I making a presumption?
Your
Why
presumption.
wouldn't they not have gone to the city and asked for, will this happen if we do this?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I didn't ask those questions of them as I prepared for this hearing. But you're making a bit of a presumption in the questions you're asking of me that somehow they're going to get something that was not built into their modeling. And I don't know that, and you don't know that respectfully.
But if what you're telling me is that the city seems to be going along with it, they could just apply to the city, could they not, to get the 40S? They don't need a board decision on it.
Well, except the problem is we have a retroactive assessment for 2017. So how would you like us to apply for that exemption? I mean, this is the way these things typically come forward. If it comes on, you're entitled to challenge classification, which is what's happened here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Can I ask a question of the
Please.
assessor? Are you familiar with the legislation for exemptions?
Probably not as much as I should.
Well, what familiarity you have then, can I say, do you feel that this WRHA generally qualifies doing this kind of thing? Would they qualify for this S?
Speaking with a colleague of mine, it would be yes, and the owners can ask for us to review it, the classification, and as far as I know, we can retroactively make it effective as of whatever the effective date of the lease agreement was. And so, as far as I know, that can be done, and it doesn't necessarily I mean, it can be done here as well, because it's part of the appeal process. But if but also in this process, it is fully on the applicant to show and to prove that they are indeed that classification. So that's.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Anything in summation, gentlemen?
I guess, does it normally go, who goes first, or?
So you usually go first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I like to, like these, I guess these properties are a little bit, they can be a little bit difficult to value, and so I'd like to think that we've tried to simplify it, and we tried to take as fair approach as possible. We've tried to value this property as if it were a full apartment block, not an apartment block with no kitchens and stuff like that. We've used apartment parameters to try to establish a fair value to compared to other properties. With regards to the applicant, it may be a little bit of a combination of business decisions into the valuation, whereas like from the department side, it's like we're just looking at it from a pure apartment, and so with regards to the rents, their expenses, and their cap rates, and to so we believe that the rents that we've used are fair, and they are supported. And we believe that the assessment is in line with the permitted value of about $22 million. And having said that, I ask that you maintain the assessments for 2017 at their values, at their current values.
What would I think it get? It's not a typical apartment. Full stop on that issue. And numerous panels, both in 2016 cycle, 2017 cycle, and for cycles before that. I've been doing this group of properties for a dozen years now. So full stop, it's not a traditional apartment, and you can't value it as such. On the exemption issue, I think we have established fully that we fall within the criteria for the exemption. The assessor is not contesting that we meet the criteria for the exemption. The chairman of the panel has some concerns. I've heard those concerns, but respectfully I say we have met the criteria. The assessor does not contest it, and yes, you have a discretion to say, I don't care what the assessor says. I acknowledge that, but I think in the circumstances of this case, the exemption should be allowed because the criteria have been met. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day. Good.